Hello, this is Jason Clement, Technical Sales Manager at Isonas, and welcome to this training video. This video will be the installation of our new RCO4 product line. We'll discuss installing a device out at the door, running our cables up into the junction box, connecting peripheral devices to our pigtail, and finally we will add the RCO4 into peer access. We'll also discuss some installation tips out at the door as we go along. Let's take a look at our training door here. These are typical installation conditions for a reader controller. We have a single gang electrical box, a fail-secure 12-volt DC electric strike, a door sense and request to exit motion on the back of the door here, a 4-square junction box for our connections, and a PoE connection going back to my network. When you have multiple devices connected to your pigtail, you want to go ahead and label these cables as they come into the junction box. Here I've just taken some simple gray electrical tape and a Sharpie and labeled down what each cable is. This will help you during the installation process. It'll also help any future service people when they come out and poke around in here if they need to fix something. You also want to label the cover of your junction box. I've just written Isonas demo door. This way you know what it is, and anybody else in the future poking their head in the overhead will know what it is as well. Now before we do anything out at this door, before we cut in electrical locks or anything like that, just make sure the door opens and closes correctly. If the latch doesn't catch, if the door is warped, it's bent, whatever, don't work on the door until you get the door fixed. Because all of a sudden you start working on it and then the door worked fine before you touched it. So just make sure you cover yourself, make sure the door opens and closes correctly before you put an electric locking hardware on there. Let's go ahead and run our cables up the wall here. Now for my condition, it's pretty simple. I've got everything open, I can just run this up and plug it in. Out in the field, you may have to fish down a mullion, you may have to fish down this wall, it may be covered in drywall. You may have to put up conduit, etc. Each door and each site is going to have unique installation conditions. Again, this is fairly simple as everything's open here. So we'll run our pigtail up, do our penetration there, and into our junction box. Go ahead and pull this through. I always like to make sure these are about the same length. This way when you curl it up in the box, it's nice and neat. So we'll pull a little bit more through there. And I've got an Ethernet patch cable. We'll go ahead and pull this up to our connection up there. And we'll plug this into the jack. I always recommend having a jack out here rather than just taking the cable straight down into the junction box. This way you can test various things right out the door. We'll go ahead and push some of this slack through here. Now we'll go ahead and install the wall plate. This is the wall plate for a wall mount RCO4. If you have a mullion mount, it will be skinnier. Also, if you don't have a junction box or you're using the mullion, you'll have to drill a 1-inch hole in order to fit this RJ45 connector through there. This is slightly smaller than 1 inch, so 1 inch is the minimum. If you want a little bit of wiggle room, just go to 1 1/8 or 1 1/4 inches. The other thing when installing this wall plate is a lot of times in new construction, this back box will be sitting back further than the wall surface. So you want to make sure you don't screw these in too tight or you'll warp the plate and the RCO4 will not be able to slide onto it. So let's go ahead and install this wall plate here. Screw this in, but not too tight. Just tight enough to stay in place there. Perfect. Now we can begin our wiring out at the door. I've already got my peripheral connections already wired and installed here, so we can jump right into the wiring. We'll start with the electric lock first. Got my 12-volt DC electric strike, and I have my diode installed right behind the strike as well. Your suppression devices should always be connected as close to the lock as possible. If absolutely necessary, you can put them up in a junction box if you have no room down here, but in general, you want to keep them as close, whether it's a diode or an inrush suppressor. So my electric strike is simply going to be red to red and black to black on my pigtail. I'll pull this electrical tape that I put on there to pull this up. Pull that off there. Pull out my red and black on the pigtail here, which is my electric lock. Find my electric strike, which I know because I have it labeled up here. And we'll go red to red. Now when you're using your wire strippers and you're pulling back this sheath on these individual wires, make sure you don't dig too deep in there. If you pull too many of those strands of wires out, you'll get a bad connection and it will eventually, the wire will break and you'll run into service issues in the future. So make sure you have a good connection and a lot of wire underneath there. Now the common for the lock power and our 12 volt DC is the same wire, it's the black wire. So we're going to go ahead and connect our Rex power up first before we terminate the common wire. Our Rex wire is here and red and black is our power, red being positive voltage. That goes to the orange wire on the pigtail, which is a static 12 volt DC, which will keep our Rex powered all the time. And then finally we'll take the common for the Rex, we'll take the common for the doors for the electrical lock, and we'll take the common from the pigtail and we'll put all those together. Now we can go ahead and wire up our door sense and Rex. Our Rex, I have a green and white wire going to the normally open and common terminals on the Rex. We'll take the green wire and connect it to the green. I can take the green or white wire, it doesn't matter because it's just a normally open circuit. It's either open or closed. But it makes sense to just connect the green wire to the green wire. Just make sure you're consistent in your wiring methods and don't switch it up because you'll confuse people. We'll leave the white wire off right now because that's the common. The door sense and the Rex share the same common, just like the power. So we'll go ahead and pull the blue wire out here, which is our door sense wire. We'll connect one side of this door sense cable to our blue door sense input. Again, it doesn't matter which one. It's either a closed circuit for normal or it's an open circuit when the door is open. Now we'll take these three commons and connect it to the brown on the pigtail, which is your input common. So Rex common, door sense common to the brown wire, and make sure we get a good connection here. Uh-oh, we've got a couple wires left over. Did we mess something up? Nope, you'll usually have some wires left over when you're installing these. So go ahead and take those wires that you have left over, pull them out of the feed there, cut off any bare metal that you have here, and go ahead and tape these back so they don't accidentally short or ground. Grab some electrical tape here, and we'll tape these back out of the way. Excellent. Now we've got all of our wiring completed here. We can go ahead and plug in our RCO4. You want to plug in your pigtail first and then your Ethernet connection. Unless you're powering it via an external power supply, then you'll basically want to reverse it. Whatever is powering the reader controller you want to plug in last. So we'll go ahead and we'll plug in our pigtail here. Also, if you're installing the reader controller outside, you'll want to make sure to put some dielectric grease on your pigtail connector and on your RJ45. The dielectric grease will protect these electrical terminals from any water or humidity that gets back there. Remember, nothing's really waterproof, it's just varying degrees of water resistance. And no matter what you do, you'll put some silicone around there and other stuff, eventually something will get back there. So protect your terminations with dielectric grease. Now we'll go ahead and plug in our reader controller to my PoE network. Here we can see the reader controller is booting up. By default, the reader controller will look for DHCP and it will point to Pure Access Cloud. So if that's your configuration for your site, you don't need to do any configuration on the reader controller. You can just go ahead and plug it in and get it set up. And my reader controller has gone into an unlock mode because my Rex sensor is booting up. While the Rex is booting up and configuring to environmental conditions, it will trigger the relay. This will go back to its lock state in a minute. Now I'm going to leave this disconnected or hanging here like this until we add it into Pure Access. We're going to take a picture of the MAC address and serial number on this side, and we're going to add the device in that way. it's best to just leave it hanging here and so I can get a good clean picture of this. So let me grab my mobile device and we'll add this device into Pure Access. All right, I'm logged into Pure Access on my mobile device here, so we'll go ahead and add this access point in. We'll go to Access Control, Access Points, and then click the Add button here. We'll wait for this new wizard to pop up, and we'll go ahead and click Scan because we're going to take a picture of the MAC address. So we'll get a nice good close picture here and focus. We'll go ahead and click OK, and it will pull the MAC address into the field for us. We're going to go ahead and label this demo door. Oops, we'll go ahead and take that out. Demo door. And we're going to go ahead and add this into the all doors access point group. I've already got some rules associated with that group and some users in the system, so just by adding the access point in there, it will inherit all those rules. So we're all connected, so we'll go ahead and click Next. We have a door sense and request exit motion. We'll click Next. We have a fail secure electric strike, and we do not have an EDK connected. Now it's going to go ahead and do a latch test, so it's going to go from the lock state to the unlock state, and it's going to ask us if it did it. Yes, it did, so we're good to go there. Now it's going to move into a door sense test. It's going to ask us to open the door, and then close the door. Everything was successful there, so we'll click Next. We'll do the Rex test, so we'll click Ready. Activate the Rex, I'll just wave my hand in front of the motion sensor back there. That's good. Test a badge. This does not have to be a valid badge in the system. It just has to be any badge that the RCO4 can read, just so that it tests to make sure that the badge is being read correctly. So it didn't seem to take it there. Go ahead and read it again. I probably read it too quick, that's my fault. Badge test is successful. Testing complete. I always uncheck Rex event just because you're walking on this side of the door. You really don't want the reader controller to beep at somebody on the other side. So we'll go ahead and take that off and click Settings Complete. Now we can go ahead and leave this door in an unlocked state. During the testing it stays unlocked. Or we can set it back to its normal lock state. You may want to leave it unlocked if you're on a construction site and people are going in and out the door. But obviously here we can just set this back to the lock state. So we're good to go there. I'll go ahead and set my device down. And we'll go ahead and put the RCO4 on its back plate here. So we'll push this extra wire in there. Get this nice and snug on the plate and slide it on down. Go ahead and grab our set screw in the installation box. I'm going to use the Phillips, but there is a torque security screw if you want that. We'll go ahead and screw that in here to secure this to the wall. Alright, now the reader controller is secured to the wall. If this was an exterior unit, I would put a thin bead of caulk around here just to keep any water or elements from getting back behind there and damaging the reader controller. Now that everything's set up, I'm going to go ahead and test a credential. I'm actually going to test a mobile credential on my device here. First thing I want to do is we made changes. We've added an access point. We need to push those out, so we'll run an update on the system. While that's updating, we'll go ahead and go to our Isonas mobile credential app, pull that up, wait for that to come up, and then we'll go ahead and present this to the reader, and we can see that we got a valid admit signal. Go ahead and set that back down. So we've tested everything, we got everything connected. The last thing we want to do is tidy up our connections in the overhead here. So we'll go ahead and wrap these up. And we can see by keeping everything the same length, it's nice and neat in there. And we'll go ahead and put the cover on. Now we're all set. We've got everything installed, tested, functioning correctly, and we're ready to go on to the next door. Thank you for watching this video. We hope it was beneficial. Have a fantastic day.